Dr. Drgabone, QHSC.
And make sure our profession also has an impact to the community. Because without nurses, I will tell you, whether it's in America or Europe or Tanzania, without nursing, there's no healthcare. I mean, they might not acknowledge or appreciate that, but without nursing, there's no healthcare. So we need to make sure the nurses are elevated, respected, and of course, showing knowledge about the bedside patients and working environment. So that's the reason that we always try to find the expert in different areas and then give them the platform to share what they do every day, and then highlight what we can contribute to our profession, and then inspire other people who are like, oh, I can be a nurse like her, or I can be a nurse like him. So.
Hello, my name is Dr. Drgabone Mwalupindi. I am so excited for you to join us today. Today we are bringing you the second QHSC Health Conversation, the role of nursing in clinical research. In preparation for today's conversation, we send an informal survey to a lot of participants and audience that have been attending our conferences and come and visit our website. With that survey, we ask 10 questions. Thank you for everybody who responded. We got 94 responses. These are the 10 questions that were asked. So for more details of this survey, please log into our website, www.drgaboneqhsc.org. You will see all the details of the responses. And some of the questions that were asked in the survey we will summarize here, and we put them in the 7 areas which we will be discussing during the conversation today. Without further ado, let me welcome everybody to today's conversation. Karibuni sana.
So the second conversation includes the clinical research. So a lot of people have discussion, and what can we do about the clinical research? What is clinical research?
Okay, to answer that question, what is clinical research? So let's go and meet our panelists.
Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you all. My name is Annie Schneider, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the U.S. And I'm really glad to be here and join in on this discussion with you all.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Annie.
Okay, I'm Catherine Gitige. I'm a nurse. I'm working with Kibongoto Infectious Diseases Hospital in Tanzania. Mainly, we treat tuberculosis patients, and I'm working in clinical research unit, but also I specialize in applied epidemiology. Thank you.
Very nice.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Pendo Martha Joseph. I'm working in Kibongoto Infectious Disease Hospital. I'm working with Catherine, and I'm a nurse educator working in research and training unit.
That is very good. As I said, I asked 3 of you to come and join us and to try and discuss a few things that will help a nurse who is making a decision today. Like, she has never done clinical research, or he has never done being involved in clinical research. I want at the end of this conversation, they will have, okay, what exactly can we do to be able to conduct the research or participate in the research? Or if I'm asked to participate in the research, what is my expectation that I need to know before I can participate and provide a valid responses? So I think Ms. Annie Schneider, she was able to do the video. It was like 23 minutes video, which we put on the link at the end of this conversation, and it was posted 2 weeks ago. So Ms. Annie earned her BSN from Kent State University, and then a master's in public health with a focus in global health from the George Washington University. Currently, she works as a clinical research coordinator at MedPace Incorporated, deeply passionate about improving access to quality healthcare locally and abroad. Currently, Ms. Annie is our secretary at the Drgabone QHSC board members in non-profit organization here in the United States. And I think her dedication and participating in our organization, we can't do without you. So thank you very much. And
well, thank you so much for that introduction. So just to add to that, I did work as a bedside nurse in the hospital with Harriet for about 8 years. And then I transitioned into the research field. And so right now, at my current position, I review safety events that occur during clinical trials. And so I can see firsthand how important clinical research is and how good documentation and good reporting really help to strengthen a trial. So I'm very excited to be here and looking forward to discussing this further.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Annie. So I am going to go to Ms. Catherine is a clinical research nurse as an epidemiologist at Kibongoto Infectious Disease Hospital in Tanzania. She worked with the hospital for more than 10 years. She's been able to show good practice at clinical trials unit, analyst for the descriptive hospital data. She's an expert in outbreak investigation and disease surveillance and data management. She contributed in the different outbreak investigation and MDRTB surveillance system evaluation. Catherine and co-worker at clinical trial unit were able to demonstrate great fidelity in clinical trials protocols. Together with clinical expertise, she is a consultant for the human subject research for the Women in a Conversation at Government Fund, coordinated by RISE, R-I-S-E, Institute, which is a research innovation for the Serengeti ecosystem. Her relevant work experience includes she has worked for 13 years. Catherine worked as a registered nurse and worked as a medical field epidemiologist for 1 year, experience in outbreak investigation, surveillance system evaluation, and descriptive and advanced epidemiological data analysis and reporting, report writing. So welcome and congratulations for these achievements. And if you can say something to add to it, Ms. Catherine.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Harriet, for a brief introduction. Basically, that is my introduction, and I developed my passion in research when I was taking my bachelor degree. Before I thought the nursing is only bedside. Of course, many think of that, but nursing is beyond bedside. Now I'm working in clinical research unit as data quality officer, trying to influence others also about the importance of data. Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you today. I hope I will learn a lot.
We are going to learn from each other. That's definitely, because most of the time we work in this field, sometimes we work in silos, meaning like everybody is on their own unit, hospital, city, state, country, whatever. But when we do this global meeting, at least we share a few things, what we do here in the United States, what you guys do in Tanzania, and then so we can exchange our ideas. So we are going to both learn from each other. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Ms. Pendo, she has a master's in advanced nursing, specialized in nursing education, awarded from Monash University, Australia, and degree in nursing, BSN, awarded from the Herbert Kairuki Memorial University, HKMU in Tanzania. She has served as nursing educator and nursing leader for more than 15 years and nursing researcher for the past 3 years. From 2013, was employed as a nursing officer at the Ministry of Health, Community Development, Community Development, Gender, Children, and Elder in Tanzania. Since then, she worked at Kibongoto Infectious Disease Hospital. Also, she is a visiting assistant lecturer at the Kilimanjaro Christian University College since 2019. She has been teaching and examining undergraduate students at KCMUC from January 2005 to June 2013, she worked as a nurse tutor at Huruma and Kibosho School of Nursing under the Catholic Diocese of Moshi, located in Kilimanjaro, Tanzania, and occasionally served as an acting principal in Huruma School of Nursing. She's also participated in the health system and implementation of research, and has recently published a systematic review protocol in a field close to her heart, training and development of nurses. Yay! She is determined to expand her work in the upcoming project. So Ms. Pendo's research interest is on health system, public health, and nurse education. She did some representation in scientific forums such as the East, Central, and Southern Africa College of Nursing Conference, which was held in Nairobi, Kenya in September 2018. That is impressive, Pendo. Thank you very much for being here. And if there's anything you want to add to it.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gabone. Yeah, that's all about my introduction. And I can say that I've dedicated my time working as an educator, and I have also worked as a nurse researcher. And we have one of the projects we created mentors from 3 regions, that is Kilimanjaro, Iringa, and Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. So we created a group of nurse leaders so that they can empower other nurses in their locality. So I'm really happy to work with you so that we can impact in research and training as well. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I don't know if you knew about me. I was a nursing clinical educator for almost 10 years in one of the states, Ohio. And it was very rewarding working with the nurses at bedside and doing some clinical research. And so I was excited when I heard the nurse educator. I'm like, yes, because our goal is to make sure we empower the nurses, because the nurses will do the best work they can. The reason we came to nursing is because we want to serve others. And so if we are armed with things that we can go and take care of these patients, we can do it beautifully. I mean, we can take care of these patients. So being a nurse educator at that time, it was great. In fact, that time I was working with Miss Annie here. She was one of the managers for one of the units that I was teaching also. So it was great to work together and to be able to find the information or use the information to educate nurses, and then encourage nurses to participate in the clinical research. So having all these different disciplines doing the research, and of course the nurses also are the ones who are going to collect the data. So we had to teach the nurses things that they need to do or know before they participate in those research. So it's always very, very nice to have those opportunities. So thank you very much for being here, and you guys spending time today to be able to discuss this clinical research. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to start with Miss Annie. So I'm going to pretend I'm a new nurse who has never done research. So all these questions I'm going to be asking for the brand new nurse who just graduated and looking forward to be a super nurse when they start working. So then I get there and I want to be doing this research because I want to be impacting everybody. So, okay, I'm going to ask Ms. Annie. So what is clinical research? And why do I need to do that?
Great question. So clinical research is, there are 2 main types of clinical trials. And so these are clinical trials, which is where the patients are assigned a specific treatment, and observational is where you are just observing patients, and those are more like historical studies where you look backward, and clinical trials are more moving forward. And so it's really important for nurses, especially new nurses, to get involved in clinical research, because you are really getting the most up-to-date information. You are working with drugs that are not even to market yet. So you really get a chance to work on your skills, your observation skills. So just really important to get involved in any way that you can. So thank you for that question. Great question.
Oh, thank you. I thought so. Okay, so Ms. Catherine, so the same thing, if I'm a new nurse in Tanzania, in one of the hospitals, Kibongoto Hospital, and I have so many ideas, and I want to learn about this evidence-based. So what are the things that I need to do to be able to be part of it?
Thank you for the question. as a new or a junior nurse who wants to contribute to the research, first, there are some seniors who are more good, they have more good profile in research. How you can integrate your ideas, you can contact them and share the idea you have so they can brand it more in a scientific way, and they may guide you how you can move about writing skills, the flow of how you're going to write it down, and then you send to them. They will check the quality, they will advise where to improve, where to add, where to remove, and such kind. Then from there you can learn the best way of doing research. Thank you.
So, Ms. Pendo, the same questions I'm going to ask you. Yeah, I'm brand new nurse and I'm excited. I have so many. I know Ms. Kathy said, yes, we can find people who are seasoned, who have done the research before. And what happens, my idea is so good, but then they brush me off and they don't think that my idea is excellent. So for Ms. Pendo, how would I go about to make sure somebody's listening to me, because I just graduated and I studied so hard and I have all this passion about nursing. So what can I do?
Okay. Yeah, I think what is important is to look on the available reports in the hospital, because there is like a number of reports that they have reported, so that I can look what maybe if there is any problem that have been reported, like there is a magnitude of a certain problem, the magnitude is high probably. And then so that if I think like if I find like this is a priority problem, I have enough evidence to convince like those who are senior, like Catherine says, like in order to sell that idea, I have to have some justification. How big is the problem, and maybe I've seen from this daily reports or monthly report or quarterly reports. And also I have to also to read on the available literature to review like if that is the problem in my institution, but how about in Tanzania, how about in Africa, in sub-Saharan African countries, so that whenever I want to present my research idea, so that they can buy that idea and find it's a priority, I have to have some justification. And also, I think countries, it all depends. Sometimes people they did research in school, but maybe you need some refresher or some training so that you can be able to engage in research, because with that knowledge you get from the university might not be sufficient to start doing research. So you need to, that's why we need to maybe to find some training, like online training, and also you have to cooperate with the seniors so that you can work as a team and gain some skills and knowledge from the team.
Speaking like a true nurse educator. Thank you very much. That was an excellent, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Kathy also. So we're going back to Ms. Annie. So now here in the United States, the same thing. I am so excited. One of the nurse, new nurse, and we learn, like what Ms. Pendo just said, I learned from school, we did this peacock questions. Now I get to clinical side. So, and I'm excited. I want to do whatever I was doing in school. So what are the things that you think a new nurse should be aware of before either conducting studies, or how do they go about to develop a researchable question?
Excellent question. So one thing that I think is very important is to kind of check your own personal bias. And, you know, especially I remember being a brand new nurse and being so excited and so just, you know, I thought I had all the answers and I thought things were going to go a specific way. And so just making sure to check in with yourself and trust the science and trust the process of research. And you may not you don't know the answer. And so making sure that you are not directing the research or directing the process in a way that you think it should go. And so just making sure that you are actually really impartial. So it's definitely great being a brand new nurse and being really excited about research and about getting out into the nursing world, but you have to make sure that you are actually looking at the science and the data in a very impartial way. So I think that's an important thing to kind of check yourself and remember that you might not get the results that you are expecting.
Oh, thank you very much. That is, it's an important thing to have and be an objective researcher. It's like, yeah, you have to check your biases at the door. So if you come with a hidden agenda, you're going to influence the results to go one way, and probably might end up forcing the results or forcing the interpretation to suit your assumptions. And that is not going to be reputable study, or it cannot even be replicated because you had already a hidden agenda. So it's going to be invalidate your results if you have that bias in there. So I do appreciate you mentioning that, because as I said, if people are very passionate about things, they want things to be done in the, almost they're doing something to confirm their biases, and that is not going to work. And that is not going to be able to help our patients, because we are trying to improve our patients' health and also improving the working environment. So that may not help very well. So I'm going to see a couple of the questions from the survey. I know this survey was anonymous and we didn't ask people to tell their names, but I have a couple of questions which are related to exactly what Ms. Annie just said about them. I'll pose that question for all three of you, that what are the things that they need to do, for example, if they're trying to use data that are already collected. So can somebody just jump in and, I have my research question, can I go in and start to evaluate 500 charts for the patient without the patient knowing, or is there a specific process for them to follow to be able to reach to that patient data? Ms. Anna, we can start with you, or the other, anybody who wants to jump in.
Okay, sure. So yeah, that is a great question, because I know, especially when we're just getting started in research, we are just so excited to jump in and we just start pulling data from wherever we can get it. So first and foremost, you definitely have to have consent from the patient before looking at their chart, because they might not want to participate in research. And so that is the most important thing, is to get consent, because even if you're just, oh, I'm just reviewing a chart, it already happened, the data is already here, why can't I just use it? You have to kind of put yourself in that patient's shoes. Would you want your data being published for something? So it's really important, even if the event already occurred or the data is already there, you have to make sure that you get that patient's consent. And that should be just according to your policy, if it's written consent or, you know, a chart review release or something like that. And then also, to address the second part of the question, when you're if you are setting up your research design, or if you're following a specific protocol, there are very strict criteria that have to be met. Even if you're just historically looking at a patient's chart, because again, we don't want to bias the data in a certain way. So if we're looking at, you know, patients with maybe a cardiovascular history, and we just start pulling all this data from anyone's chart who has high blood pressure, we don't want the data to be confounded by other factors, such as, do they have diabetes? Do they have any other medical conditions that could influence what we're looking at? So there just has to be very specific criteria, and you have to be able to prove that those criteria are met before you just start pulling data, because again, we don't want the end result to be confounded by different factors. So it's definitely it's a lot of hard work, but it's definitely worth it for a very unbiased product in the end. So great question.
Thank you, Ms. Annie. Ms. Kathy?
Yeah, thank you for the nice question. Basically, I can answer this question because it is already called a research or a study. According to the standard, whether it is primary data or it is secondary data, that has to go through the ethical process. The ARB will look at the protocol and they will see your intention. Then, to the researcher, it may safeguard him after publishing the result. It depends, because sometimes you may publish something which is not acceptable. If then they trace back, there's no ethical approval, then legally that person is not safe. And by the way, when somebody is using secondary data, they may not have found a physical patient, but they will review the patient document. That ethical approval already give him or her right to access that individual particulars and data and information. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you, Ms. Kathy, for adding the ethical angle. Yes, you're right, because secondary data, you might not, I mean, the person might not be there physically, but yeah, as you go through the process, yes, we validate, and the IRB will see if the patient, I mean, either was asked before, or, but sometimes, I mean, like when you do admission, the patient, would you like to participate in the study? Either today's study or future study, your data can be used. Some patient may say no. So even if you get the ethical clearance, you may come back and some certain charts may not be available for you just because it was the patient maybe have indicated they don't want the information to be used anyway. But yeah, I do agree with you using the IRB to be able to get that ethical clearance to make sure wherever you are getting there, you're not going to misuse it. And then, so whatever you get, you have to follow those proper channels to try and safeguard the patient's information. So privacy is the priority there. Ms. Pendo, do you have anything to add to that? Any other guidelines that a new nurse should know instead of being too excited to go and get the data and try to compile and try to interpret them? First, they need to follow specific things.
Yeah, I think it is important, as they said, we need to, like, they have to have consent from the patient if the patient is there. If he's not there, then, like, if the patient is there, even though you have the ethical approval, but you need to get consent from the patient. But if he's not there, then ethical approval is sufficient, I think. Like, but usually, like, most of the time, if you are reviewing, like, some of the records, like if there is it is an operational research, most of the time the patient is there. So sometimes people, if they have got ethical clearance, they might feel like they are allowed to go and review without ask consent from the patient, but it is necessary to get consent from the patient if he's there. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. So you both, I mean, if I can just summarize to that question, because I know it was asked almost like 3 times, just to make sure people understand that, yeah, so being excited doing research is a great thing. Being able to try and solve or provide adding to the nursing profession by discovering new information is great. However, there's specific protocols you need to follow before you can touch that information, so you don't change or invalidate those results when you collect them, because if you collect them without ethical clearance, or if you collect it without patient consent, then you're not going to be able to publish. And if you publish it, I mean, academically, you're going to get in trouble because you stole that information which is not yours. And so they need to know that there's a proper channels. If you work in the hospital that does not have IRB or these ethical committees, then you should be able to find information maybe around your town or state should have those. Because sometimes a small hospital or small like a school might have, like a collaboration or Tanzania Udia, but then can work together to be able to say, if you work in this hospital, maybe you can use the IRB from another hospital because maybe they cover both hospitals. So somebody have to be able to find that information. You cannot use an excuse that, oh, there's a hospital I work with, they don't have ethical clearance, so I'm just gonna do whatever. You're gonna get in trouble. So I mean, I appreciate 3 of you agree that yes, you have to have those protocols or standard of doing initiating or requesting any permission to do the research. And I'm happy that Ms. Pendo is saying, even if you have the ethical clearance or the IRB approval, if the patient is there, you need to have to get this consent. Now you talk to them because they can say, I don't want to be in there. Even if you have your ethical clearance, I don't want to be in a part of it. So those things that we need to be aware of. So another question is, it was asked by 3 people, and it was saying, okay, so after I do the clinical research and I get the information, what do I need to do with that information? So I'm going to start with Ms. Annie on your area. I mean, I know yours is a little bit more systematic, and but just give us an example. If you're in the clinical setting, what am I going to use with that information? Okay, yes, I got the ethical clearance. I collected the data. Now I have all this information in front of me. What am I going to do with that?
Sure. Great question. So there are a couple of different ways to address this question. One avenue would be if you are working for a sponsored clinical trial, you are essentially giving that information to a sponsor who will then publish that data. If you're working by yourself and you're collecting data and you've finished the trial, you've done your statistical analysis, you can submit that to various journals or submit it to your hospital to improve practices. So there's different types of ways to get your data out there. So that is a great question and one that I've dealt with before personally. So you've got all this data, you've got all this wonderful research, now what? So definitely a great question.
Yeah, I know, and there are 3 of people ask that question. As I said, I mean, I am so grateful for people who put those information in there. They were asking great, and you can see that people want to learn. And just get me so excited that at least somebody wants to improve their practice and ensure safety for themselves in a working environment and for their own their patients. Okay, so Ms. Kathy, the same thing. Yeah, now in Tanzania, somebody is so excited, follow those rules, collect the data. Now they have these tables, like aggregated data, and I can see this, I can interpret this, I can go and show off what I did and see my assumption was this. Now I have actual supporting evidence for this data. Okay, what am I doing with that now?
Thank you for a very nice question. Basically, before you start a study, there is a question that, why am I doing this? Then whole process undertaken came with the tables, with the charts, with the whatever findings is. Now, that findings may help to influence the policy. If it is in a policy focus, it may help in a policy brief, or it may improve the interventions, but also the findings can be presented to different conferences to inform a large group of the people so they can understand your findings. When the findings is interested in, it is in the priority of particular place you are, those findings will be used for decision making. It's not only for you. The finding is for a large population. Yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
That's an excellent. So you raise a very good point. Yes, some people be like, okay, I've done this, and as I said, you get excited with charts and say, okay, now I have my results, then I'm gonna do only for my hospital. No, I mean, if it's very good findings, as what Ms. Kathy said, yeah, it can be generalized to other places that they can be informed with what you discover. And that's the beauty of doing research, because you're trying to discover new information that can improve practice, especially for clinical area, or can make everything better, or can be like, okay, maybe the way we were doing this for the last 30 years could have been improved to be more effective by doing this, right? Because I have evidence-based information to support that, or to change the practice, or to affect or impact the policies or protocols or standard of practice. So those are things that we have to be able to change our practice using evidence-based, not just because I decided that, but you have to be able to support that. So that was a great idea. Ms. Pendo?
Okay, thank you.
What am I going to
Yeah,
do with this beautiful chat?
Yeah, it is good, like they have said, to disseminate the information.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think it is important to make sure that issue of privacy should be considered as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, although we are disseminating, but we have to share with relevant stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it all depend. Like, if we, from the beginning, what was the main objective, the goal of that research?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll find some of the information you have to share from, like, within the hospital, and then maybe you need to share with the ministry if there is like relevant information that maybe they might influence policy. As Catherine said, you might prepare the policy brief, and also like utilization of this available evidence. Like, now we can start like doing like operational studies, trying to start application of this intervention, like doing operational research, if this will work in similar situation in the other place when they start apply this evidence. And also implementation studies might be done to look like if they do it appropriately during operationalization of this available evidence. Yeah, and it is important also to share in conference, like Catherine said, like you need to present in different conference. Also depend on the goal from the beginning. Which kind of conference I want to share that kind of information will be suitable. Like, maybe if there is nurses there, maybe clinician, and this kind of information might like impact their knowledge, and they will be able to apply in their place of work. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, Ms. Pendo. I mean, as Ms. Kathy said about the conference, also Ms. Annie just said in the beginning about the presentation and writing in the journal. That's why if you have your research done for all those ethical standards and guidelines, and then be able to do the research, collect this data, who maybe other hospitals or other places have not used it. So now you have this variable and you go and write it in a nursing journal. So guess what? We're gonna probably read about you, of your hard work. So that is the best part, and that's how you feed into the profession. So our profession is gonna grow because you add to it. And so, yeah, like Ms. Annie just said, putting different information in the journal is gonna help globally. Not only now your little hospital, no, it's gonna help everywhere beyond Tanzania, beyond the US. And that is the goal, because next time when, I think Ms. Kathy in the beginning was saying, okay, you have to look at the, I think probably Ms. Pendo, sorry, just saying we have to look for available data when you're trying to create that research question. You have to see what has been discovered or what has been investigated before, to be able to say, okay, maybe this question is still unknown, so I can investigate more to get more information. Because if it's saturated about that information, most of the time probably you have to find a different angle, or you have to rephrase and focus on specific area to be able to make sure wherever you're going to find at the end, it's going to add to the body of knowledge versus just being a normal standard and everybody knows about it. So those are things that is very, it's very good to know ahead of time before. And I think either Ms. Pendo, Ms. Annie, or Ms. Kat in the beginning, guys just say, when you're doing research, you have to find out what information you want to do, how important that question is. Because if you know that a question is needed, or you're struggling to work in a workplace, and then you find this, okay, I need to find another solution to this, but that's how the research comes, because now you have to find and talk to other people who have worked before and say, no, I'm trying to do this. Why do we have to spend so much time doing A, B, C, D? Can we improve that? Okay, we're not going to change the policy just because we thought about it. No, we have to come with the evidence base, try to ask people and try to build do research and try and see how much information available that is going to help us to advance our practice. So those are the great questions. So I'm glad although probably those 3 people, so we get that response when we post this video. So thank you. Oh, another question which probably got 7 people were asking. So before I start the research, where am I going to get the support, the funds to run the research? And what kind of fund do I need to be able to run the research? Anna, you want to start?
That is a really great question. So the area of research that I currently work in is solely supported by sponsored trials. So we have pharmaceutical companies that support the research, support the facilities that are conducting the research. So there are definitely advantages to that type of funding. You get funding, which is very important, but then you also, your clinic or your hospital makes money from those types of studies, and you are more likely to get updated equipment, and any any piece of equipment that is specifically required from the study, you are either lease that specific piece of equipment or you have the option to buy it at a discount after the study. So that is a really great avenue, but that is more for studies that are quite large. So if you're wanting to just do maybe a study for your specific unit or a specific patient population that you're interested in, that funding is a little more difficult to come by. And here in the US, there are grants that can be applied for, or you can go to your specific unit and see if you can make a compelling argument for why this type of research is important. You could potentially get funding through your unit or your hospital. So there are definitely various avenues to get funding that are just depending on what type of research that you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Annie. Yeah, I remember, yes, some of the individual clinical studies you might do, they might not be as large because maybe you're looking at your small population of your hospital. So it might not have those outside sponsors unless it's going to be done multi-sites. I mean, it's like different hospitals are working together, then that probably the study might be bigger. So you might get more funds that way. If it's like an individual small scale, then you might not get those outside funds. But as what Ms. Annie said, you can still work with your manager to try and find those things that you can do, and using your staff, the nursing staff, to help you collect data at that place. So then you will minimize some of the costs, and then hopefully that study later on, maybe you get those good findings, and then other hospital wants it, and then make it multi-sites. So those are things that then you can start doing that way. So don't think on only one side that you want. The first research you want to start funding, because even somebody who is providing funding, they're going to ask you, give me your portfolio. What have you been doing before I give you my money? So you always have to start small, and then you get the policies and protocols in place. You know what you need to do, which area you need to focus, and then increase the size of your the sample. And then so by that time you know a little bit more, and then it's easier to find grants or sponsorship from other places, which they can see that what you've started. So Ms. Kathy, in Tanzania, how can somebody get funding or support to do the research study or clinical study?
Thank you for that question. In Tanzania, my experience, we work with different consortium, but I, as a nurse, I'm not a direct person who is connected to that consortium, but the the principal investigator, who is PI with that project, is the person who is connected to that consortium, and the grant comes through her or him. Then other team member, other research team member, we work together. But for this question for junior staffs, the grant has criteria. Sometimes we may not fit to get the grant. The best way is to look to the area of the interest of that person and to connect to the network of the people who are doing that. Through that, it may be very possible to integrate your research to that network, but also first step is just to initiate the idea, just small idea. Those small idea will build on to larger ideas. If person is able to conceptualize just minor thing in a local area, and then come out with some findings, which is not too costly, the study are not too costly in the local area, then that person may show the way he is or she is focusing on solving different public health issues. I think we in Tanzania, basically, we don't have those grant. We depend on USAID, the European, any who has a wealth. Thank you.
That's an excellent, as I said a few minutes ago, that yes, it's great to have grants. It's great to have sponsors, but you have to work so hard, because anybody who wants to give you the money, they're not going to just agree to it. What Miss Annie just said, yes, you can start small. Miss Kathy just said, you can start small, like things that happen to your own unit. You can start small, and then when you have that in small scale, like what Miss Kathy said, small scale, when the findings are very good, people are going to say, aha, I want that. Or associate finding those grants that they have, finding their interest, and then see if you can match with yours. So then you can go and make a pitch with them and say, you know what, I have this program, I've done this in my hospital, but I don't have enough to be able to do to the whole hospital, and then to the next hospital and next hospital. Can you help me? If they see it's valid and you follow the protocols and they can see potential for impacting or being generalized that results, yeah, you might get it. But it's not an easy thing that you can just send an application today and then tomorrow you get the money. No, it's not that easy. Miss Pendo, yes. Or maybe you have ideas where we can find funds for juniors who start the quest for research studies.
Yeah, for you, it is like you need to engage with the team, research team. Like for yourself, you don't have that capacity, you don't have any network. So you can engage with the research team, and then you show your interest, and you, as Catherine said, you have some ideas. But while you engage there, you work, like you have to explain, I have interest in research, and because there is some criteria, they will just look on the level of education as well, because you find like in our country, people, maybe there is like, for nurses, there is registered nurse, those with the diplomas, there is those with the degree, first degree, and those with the etc. So those with the diploma, but sometimes difficult, the education person have interest, but to go through, and it's difficulty. But from bachelor level, when you engage with research team and you start to show interest from there, it's easy to even to share your ideas, because sometimes, like, you find in our country there is some collaboration, like in the hospital that I'm working, we have some collaboration with the certain international organization. So you have to write like a simple consent, though you are not able to mobilize major grants, but you can write a simple consent of what you think you can do, And then from there, you share with the head of that department, and then he will like compile and a major proposal so that they can mobilize fund. And then those nurses, juniors, they can be able to work through that team. So it is easier when you work with the team. But if you, for yourself, like junior nurse, it's not easier to mobilize major grant. But also there is like small budgets, sometimes like in some department, it all depends with the department that you are working. But there is some like if something is very important, then forecasting you can put, it will not be, it might not work, but sometimes you can get some, like through the team you can get something to work. So I think it's not easier to mobilize a large grant, but at least when you are collaborating with the team, it is easier. Like for the research project that we have, I mean, with that I was working, we have like, I work with a PI, and then PI is like having, like is able to mobilize large grant, and there is a big program, like through those program, we have some small that we are doing. So like you are working well, then the more you have chances of getting like, and you are also, you get knowledge skills on how to go through. So that's what I can say. And also sometimes when you present your work in conference, and you work and you find some, you find some people with same interests like you, and then it's easier to collaborate with them, and then you can work together. That's all.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Ms. Pendo. I do agree with you. Collaboration is the key when you're doing the research study. I mean, unless you have done research for like 30 years to be able to like run the research by yourself, you do need more people with you, because it's very hard to do everything by yourself. And sometimes, I mean, scientifically, you need almost different opinions from different people to see things from different angles, so you can reduce that bias and make it the findings more generalized, just because of different perception of that finding. So I do agree with you. Yeah, if somebody who has brand new, what you guys call junior nurse, so they have an idea, working with the other team, which is already doing the research, it helps them build first of their confidence, and also they know the process how it is. And then also you get the chance to they might ask you, okay, what do you think we should do? And then that's the chance you get to get the platform to be able to expose your ideas. And then of course, if they agree with your ideas, then you'll be able to perform that study. So that would be helpful to do that. Yes, there are probably, I would say 10 or 15 people were asking, where can we find the guide to do clinical research? Like if somebody wants to learn about, before they start doing this, just to learn, to make sure, okay, is this something that I want to do? And then they can commit with it. So where can they find the resources to do a clinical research? Annie, can you give us just an overview for here for United States? And then
Sure, definitely. Yeah, sorry. So in the United States, the FDA is a great resource, and just going to fda.gov, you can find pretty much any resource that you need to make sure that your institution's policies and standard of practice are ready to begin research. So yeah, here in the US, that's a great resource, and probably the number one that I would recommend. Or clinicaltrials.gov is good too, but I think the FDA references that. So yeah, that's the number one place that I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kathy, for Tanzania junior nurse, if they want to go and do research, where can they get the guide or information? Because there are some people that said maybe 8 or 10 people were asking, where can is it possible to get the guidelines and tools to conduct the research? Where can I get the tool, or where can I get the guides? Can you provide the guide for us so we can read about it? I mean, there's so many people who are asking because they're interested and they want to learn a little bit more, like probably the whole process before they engage to it. Do you know, like in Tanzania, where they can find that information?
Yeah, thank you for that question. First of all, the guide may not be very open, but WHO always publish the priority areas for the research, but also in the local area, there are vision and missions. Somebody can align the idea with the mission and the vision of the place he works or she works. But also there are current situations who are emerging, like just like now we have a COVID, it has just emerged. From there you can think the idea. I think the major gap we have in Tanzania, our people, the level of education may be the barriers to conceptualize the issues. They may wish, but how to conceptualize and to align with the current situation. Yeah, I can say is to go also through the literatures. There are some recommendation our scientists, they recommend. They also give suggestions for further studies. It may help as a source. Thank you.
I agree with Ms. Kathy, yes. Right now, Ms. Pendo, anything about guidelines, places that people can go and get them, I mean, just to know information before they get to it?
I think what is important, they need to read to review like in literature, GCP, to learn about GCP, good clinical practice.
Okay.
And they need to look at the strategic plan like of their institution, strategic objective, like because every institution, they have their priorities and they have their, like there is, they have already identified, which is already identified in the priority strategic plan, like what they have to work in maybe 10 years to come or 5 years to come. So they have to review. So within the working environment, there you find there is some guideline that are there, like when some SOP. So they have to rate and to, like they have to share their ideas with these people who are already working. So that they can share the ideas on other information. But generally, they have to review literature. Like in my country, what I have learned, like there is number of nurses, like they're interested in do research, but I think there is a issue of reading. It's an issue, like people they have read, maybe they have graduated, but to go and review literature, it's an issue. There is some guidelines that have been like disseminated in our working place, but they might not read. Like if you try to ask just a simple question from the certain guideline that they are working in their working environment, but it's difficult for them to say what is in the guideline if they have not reviewed that guideline. So I think what we need to encourage nurses is to reading literatures, reading, like there is number of information they will get from their working place and from literature. That's what I can say.
Okay, no, thank you. You raised a very good point. I like that. That encouraging nurses to read, because you cannot run a research study or clinical trial without reading. Because remember, the part that you're going to find out what area you should concentrate or your inquiry should be, you have to be able to read the other available research to be able to say which one is missing or which area is needed more information. That's why you're going to consider to do your study. Because as I said before, you're not supposed to go where everybody knows that information. Nobody's going to read your study. So you have to be able to read. And sometimes they will tell you probably 100, 200 articles to see what are they talking about? What is missing on this part? Nobody's touching this part. Maybe I should focus on that area. And that's how you're going to find your study becomes more relevant to people. And people are interested to come and be like, okay, let me get that information. how that person find have more information in that or discover information in that. Can I use that information? So it's very good, but you have to read, because you can't just create a research question if you did not read. Maybe somebody else have done exactly the same thing. So instead of trying to conduct the research, why don't you replicate it? Because it's already, the information is already out there. So you always have to read them. That will save you a lot of headache. Then you can learn from somebody else's mistakes or mishaps. Then you'll be able to improve your study and get a better finding. So that was a very good point. Yes. So nurses, we do have to read, and especially for the, those areas that we work with. I know, to add to where the guide for research, doing a research, clinical research, a lot of institutions have their own protocols. I mean, I think Ms. Carter just said that also, or maybe Ms. Pendo. They're saying that you can have, I mean, the way you run the clinical study, you have to do certain things. Or usually probably the place we were working before, we were working with the doctors who they have those protocols. So they will come with specific protocols that you need to do to follow before you can engage to that study. So if you know those protocols ahead of time, it will help you, because then you can follow step by step without be sent back to go and get the information, go and find this. Did you ask people? Did you ask permission for the unit? Did you ask those things? You cannot just come with, oh, I have my question, can I ask that? No, did you ask permission for the unit? Did you talk to the manager? Did you send the message? Are your answers are gonna be anonymous? Or you wanna know who answer what? And are you in a position of power that you're gonna intimidate people who answer the questions wrong? I mean, there's so many things that you need to know, and in order to know, okay, who am I gonna be my sample? Like people they're gonna provide answers. Who are they? Why am I separating from one group to the other? I mean, you need to know that process, because you need to get the response for people who you want. So that was a great idea. So to go back to Ms. Kathy's comment about the current situation. So because my next question, I think I have almost like few people ask, what is a good topic to study, and what can I find? I mean, how would I know which topic to study? Or which area should I focus on to be able to get the research question? So things like that. So I'm glad that Ms. Kat just mentioned that current situation like we have with COVID. So if any of you guys give me an example. So with this current situation, COVID, as a new nurse, I mean, I'm frustrated, or I don't know what to do. There are a lot of things I'm missing. I don't know how to take care of patients in an infectious environment. But with this COVID, can I do anything else that might help me as a nurse with my colleagues to do better, or find out, can I develop a research question from this situation to try and solve it or improve my work environment? So if you can give me, just to think of this current situation and think of like a possible question or possible inquiry you can develop to help somebody to think beyond of just the frustration or challenges and put it into application that, okay, maybe let me try to solve and focus on the small thing, not to solve the whole world. So Ms. Kathy, Ms. Annie, if you can start, please.
Sure. Yeah, I think all of us have definitely felt that frustration of how can we solve this immediately, or you know, trying to just focus on starting small when really you want to help everyone that's affected. So definitely a frustration that we've all felt. I think one important thing to remember, or a good starting point, is to just conduct a needs assessment at your own local unit level. And so really find out, what do we need as a unit to make this problem better, or to prepare ourselves in the future in case this problem were to occur again. And then see if that is applicable to other units or hospitals or institutions. So just really starting local, I think, is a good starting point, especially if you're a new nurse that's starting out. Just really focusing on starting small, as hard as that is.
So give me an example of starting small, like just something that, I don't know, doing blood pressure or something. I don't know, just say, because remember, we are talking to somebody who has no idea how to run this research, but they are so enthusiastic because they want to solve the world. They just
Right.
graduate and hold this much energy. So we need to give them, it starts in small, but we need to give them a example and something that can guide them to this.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a little more difficult for me because I have been away from the bedside for a while, but I think just using COVID as an example, especially now that we are starting, hopefully, to see things going back to normal, taking a look at how your unit responded when the COVID outbreak occurred and seeing and asking those critical questions of how could we have responded to that better, or how can we prepare ourselves in the future in case it were to happen again, and what are some very basic approaches that that could help us be more prepared. And it doesn't have to be this huge, you know, oh, we need to get more resources, we need to get more of this. It could just be something of how can we support our nurses' emotional well-being through if that were to ever happen again, and how can we support each other if that were to happen again. Something like that. That's not that it doesn't have to be this huge, large, you know, money intensive solution. It could just be something as basic, even though it's extremely important, something as small as that to start out with.
Okay, thank you very much. Miss Kathy, same question. Since you started, I'm just kidding.
Thank you for that question. Basically, as a nurse, we work in a different environment. During the crisis, which is unknown before, there is a lot of frustration. Instead of to get confusion and contaminate yourself and others, I may recommend first to understand the mode of transmission of that disease. If the disease is preventable, there are measures. The scientists usually came with the measures. We have to stand in to have a positive attitude, at least to apply those measures, especially IPC during these COVID eras. And also to look to the epidemiological triage, that who is the agent, what is the favored environment, the host. If we understand these things, it may be very possible for us to apply measures and to look the interventions applied, if they really help or not. I think the issue is to understand the transmission mode of that disease. Then from there, you can take action. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Ms. Pendo?
Like what I learned is like we need to encourage nurses to do research. For me, I think what is important, if they start doing small things, like they start like doing a systematic review, which does not need like even if you don't have a grant, you might start doing systematic review. And once your work is seen others, you have published a systematic review and then you continue working through that protocol. You work with your colleague doing systematic review. Once you publish, and then from there, people, they will see your work, and then you will have some vivid examples, or some, like I can say, you have the student of doing a certain maybe primary study. Like from there, you have data to say maybe here is the problem. I think it's relevant now to do the primary study data, the primary study. And then another thing, what I think, if you are working like you are there to standard, you apply those like really already available evidence in your practice. During application process, you will identify if there is some gaps, if there is some challenges, and from there you will get the research idea where to start. So that's what I think, and you need to work with your colleague, collaborate with the others in your working place. Identify those who they have like talents, they have a certain they have certain expertise, and then you work together. Through that, it is easier to engage in research.
Okay,
That's what I can say.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Pendo. So to add to that, using the current situation with COVID, yes, we have to, encourage the new nurses so that when they're working in that environment, remember, for experienced nurses, probably they have dealt different pandemics. I mean, when Ebola came and the when came, people were struggling what to do, what process to follow. But for a new nurse who have never been to that situation, they're going to be face a lot of challenges. And usually from a lot of challenges, that's where you get the most research question developed, because you see the complication right now, you see the challenges, you have to make it better so next time we can put those things in place. For example, let's say with COVID now, the minimum, let's say in a normal time taking care of the patient, let's say I'm going to give an example for labor and delivery. In a normal situation that a nurse is going to go in there, see a patient in there, maybe you might have CNA or certified nurse assistant, or in Tanzania you have medical attendants. Maybe they will go ahead and do vital signs for the patient and then walk away. And then the nurse go back and do the assessment and walk away. Maybe the patient calls for something, the medical attendants or CNA goes back and get stuff for a patient. Now with the COVID, we can't do that. They're going to minimize the number of people going in there. So as a nurse, you're going to be like, okay, by yourself, because you have to do certain things, you have to cluster your care. So then you're going to have to probably use one person to do 3 roles of the responsibilities. So as a nurse, I'm going to be stressed out because I've never been doing other roles. Now I need to combine it with my current role. But if I want to do a research study for that one, I'm just going to be able to say, okay, maybe next time we need to collect this education to try and teach other people, just in case of emergencies or pandemic. Everybody knows that, okay, I need to know medical attendants does this, I need to know maybe respiratory person does this, I need to know pharmacy person does this. So then if it's only limited number of people, as person hold all this responsibility, I should have ideas of what I need to do and protect everybody else. So I mean, as a study, I'm like, okay, let me try and see, let's practice it before another pandemic shows up. So they can create something like that, right concept of that concern or challenge, and then you let it through and then try to ask people and get information available by survey, wherever. So they, I mean, you can start small, something that affects every day. Yeah, maybe we're doing patients for hypertension, we're checking them blood pressure too many times. Maybe if we have an automatic blood pressure machine, we help to take every 15 minutes so the nurse can come and assess and make sure it's working. Then you free the nurse to do something else. But if you've never done that process before, it's going to be hard. As a new nurse, you're going to say, okay, maybe let's get one blood pressure and then see how much time is going to be free for me to assess 2 or 3 more patients while the other person has only the blood pressure still managed, but I can monitor other people. So, I mean, you can have and improve the clinical part, making sure you get the consistent blood pressure on one patient that is critical, but still be able to take care of the other patient in that person, because if you're working in the unit that is understaffed, then one person is relieved by having that automatic blood pressure machine to that patient who needs the blood pressure every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So those are the research questions you can have, but you have to be able to, go beyond of just thinking about it. Talk to other colleagues and say, okay, how can we come up with things that's gonna help? How can we improve it? How can we minimize this? Talk to the manager, and then manager might say, oh, we don't have the resources for that. Then, okay, that's another challenge. So, okay, go back to the drawing boards. What can we do to try and mitigate that? So, I mean, by addressing the challenges, it might take a long time. It's not going to have just a research question today, and tomorrow you start the study. No. So that brings me to another question, which is, I think, like 4 people are asking. What is the typical time needed to do a clinical research? They're like, okay, if I start in January, in March, I'm done with it, and I have my results, right? So what is the typical length of the clinical research text from the day I have my research question to the day I present the conference somewhere? Ms. Anne, can you give us an idea? Because I mean, I know you work in a different setting, but still, like just in the usual time to sufficient time of following those ethical application papers and stuff, approval and collecting data, analyze your data, interpreting and writing of findings, and then go to the presentation. So I'm talking about the question to presentation then. How long is the typical time take? I mean, that's definitely.
Oh man. So this is probably going to be pretty disappointing for some people. It is years. It's definitely a hard thing to look at, knowing that your research question is not going to be even heard by anyone else for years. Now, I think with COVID and everything, we have seen research that has been expedited and really sped up, but you know, that's sort of an unrealistic expectation for normal research processes. So yes. So I mean, I've worked on studies that have that are still ongoing 5 years later. So that's sort of different because we are dealing with, you know, studying drugs, but it typically it's years.
Ms. Kathy?
This is a funny question. Thank you. Typically, a clinical research, it takes time. It depends on the study design a person selected. If it's select cross-sectional, it may take a year. If it is longitudinal, it is a years. If it is clinical trial, it is a years. So there is no specific time we can say it is a typical time frame for the study to end. It depends. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Ms. Pendo?
Yeah, I think you need time, like when you are doing research, you need to know from the beginning, you need time. Because for clinical trial, it takes years. It depends on the research objective, you have your work plan, but sometimes things does not work, I mean, according to the scheduled time, but then it will take years. So that's what maybe we need union nurses, they need to know that for you to do research, you need to have time. Like it's not something you do today and then maybe after 5 months you have already published something. Yeah.
No, I agree and I appreciate all of you. That was my perspective of that question because, yeah, there was few people who were asking how long does it take for it to be done in, with the clinical research. But yes, I do agree. If somebody wants to do something quickly to change practice in their unit, they can do performance improvement activities. So those are the ones that may take, I mean, when I say quickly, it does not mean it's like 2 weeks. Or, no, it's going to take probably 3, 4, 5 months to be able, because for the clinical practice improvements, those are the ones that you have to do like in session. Like you do one thing, you're going to do a trial, get the feedback, and then go back and improve it from what the feedback they have. So it might take few weeks and months, and then it might be up to 6 months. So that one, maybe you can start in January. By the end of December, you might have something to go and put on your SOP, standard of practice, or change your policy, something like that. But then if you want to do bigger than that, but then yes, you can conduct as a research. So then that may take a little bit longer because that's the process of improvement, being approved. It might take 3, 4 months because you have to go back and forth. Because remember, you're working with people who are just focusing to be a human subject. Do you include them? Are you going to protect them? Somebody's going to review that, but to make sure you're not going to misuse these results. Where are you going to use it, and why do you need that? I mean, so it's a lot of it's a long process. So yes, when you engage to it, definitely minimum a year and going depends on what the type of the research you're doing. So it might take a bit longer. And that's why I think Ms. Pendo said it before, collaboration with the previous people who already work in the study does help, so you can see how the process goes. And then it gives you a vision of how long it takes. Otherwise you're gonna get frustrated and you're gonna stop in the middle of it. And that's, yes, the research takes a long time. Yes. By the time you go and go to a presentation, yeah, probably 2, 3 years later, which is fine. But then at least you've done those collecting the data and information, then you are ready to share the finding. Okay, so we're getting close to the end, and there are a couple of things I know people were asking if we can, as an organization, QHSC, if we can support them. So at the moment, we are not able to support, but we can support you in advising and consultation. I mean, like we just say, okay, these are the things that maybe you should involve. These are the resources that we have. 3 experts here. If there's something that we need, you have a question about it, then just use Drgabone QHSC at gmail.com. And then so we'll be able to respond and give you some information, guide and networking and continue networking so that we can help our nursing profession. So other questions towards the end, they were asking, why do you think clinical research is important to where I work in my unit? Since I don't even have any resources, what is more important from clinical research? Anybody? Ms. Annie?
Sure. That is a really great question. And even in the U.S., we have very limited resources on our units, and but it's so important to always try to learn and question what you're doing and question why you are doing the task the way that it is, because things can always be improved, and it's just really, it's so important to always be questioning and to be learning, because that's how medicine got to where it is today. So, and also I just wanted to comment on the length of time for research. And while years, it does sound like a really long time, I don't want anyone to get discouraged or to say, oh, well, this is going to take so long, so I'm not going to do it. Because we need people that are questioning processes and that are willing to improve nursing practice. So even though it sounds like a long time, when you're in it and doing the research, it will just go by so quickly. And so if you're not doing it, somebody else is going to do it. So it might as well be you that's doing it. So yeah, and I just also wanted to add that while we can't provide any funding for research, we can certainly support you in any way that we can, whether that be reviewing policies or reviewing research questions or research designs, anything like that. It's just really important to get that collaboration and to get the different input from different people. So yeah, I could go on, but I will stop there.
No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Anna, that is a great point. Definitely, yeah. Collaboration is the key. I mean, we already say in the beginning that you're not going to do research by yourself. You can't. So if you collaborate with people, today, yes, you start with that, and the next time you don't know what is going to happen. So building that scientific environment to support each other for improving our nursing profession is the key. Because remember, who is going to benefit at the end of this is our patient and ourselves also. Because if we say research focusing on improving working environment, it's going to make sure you're working at a safe environment. So yes, we do want to help to try and improve that. But so you can go and save lives, because you know the nursing is going saving the life of the people. So that is a great addition there. And Ms. Kathy, what do I?
Thank you for that question. I think clinical research is very important for nursing, regardless we have resource or we don't have. Because first of all, these studies have focused in different areas. Some are for preventive, some treatment, some for diagnostic, patient safety, effectiveness of interventions. At the end, we aim to provide a quality care. Without research, we will not develop. Without research, we will not have a new intervention. We remain to the nightingale. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I'm glad you brought Nightingale back, because yes, she's the founder and initiator and trailblazer, and she did all those things because she was thinking
Yeah,
outside the box, and she was
sure,
pushing all those envelopes. So now we have to have the same energy like from her to be able to improve. And I do agree with Ms. Kathy saying you need new intervention, because yeah, I mean, I've been a nurse for almost more than 20 years. But yes, so there are certain things that I did when I started a brand new nurse, a junior nurse. When I'm looking at it now, I'm like, what was I thinking? But it's just because what I knew then, that's what I provide my care. But what I know now, definitely I have to do, it can be better than what I did before. So yes, we need those research. It might take a while, like Ms. Annie said, but still it's a variable added to our patient safety. So, and it's our goal to make sure our patients are safe. Thank you, Ms. Kathy. Ms. Pendo?
Yeah, actually, research is very important, like with or without resources, because like we need to improve every day. We need to learn from what we are doing. We learn from our practice, daily practice. We need to utilize the available evidence so without research, we will not have any progress in our work environment. We will just use what others have done. Like you might utilize the available evidence, but you need to make sure to do some research. So it is really important. Like if you don't have like resource today, it doesn't mean tomorrow you not have resources. Yeah, and I think like through working with others, because if that is important, the research idea that you have, it is important. It's not only important to your on your part, but others also they see it is important. Your team will see it as important. So definitely with time, you will be able to mobilize resource and start working. So I think what is important, it is to start somewhere. You have to start doing something like those, start with like systematic review, start with what is in the environment, use the available resource in the environment, but through that you will be able to find other resources. So you need to start somewhere. I think if we said like we don't have resource, that means we are aiming to have like major grant, but not every time we need to have a major to mobilize major grant to do research. You start with something small and then you move. You find yourself you are doing those. You are able to do a major some clinical trials that are very they use maybe years. You have like more resource, but you need to have with the small resources to have more resources. So I think if we feel like we are doing research because we need to have resources to do research, I think it is not true. If we know research is important for us to improve our care, to improve our practices, that means we know where to start, even to use the available evidence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So before I ask the last question, it's gonna be, how can we motivate the nurses? I'm gonna give you guys like a minute or so to think about it. But before, when you guys are thinking about it, I'm just gonna tell you what people provided during the research, our survey. I'm gonna provide what research have they have done, because that was the last question from our survey. It was asking, can you tell us what research you've done in a clinical area? So some of them, they are saying they're doing patient level satisfaction, and then some of them were implementation of the research operational study in the system, adherence of nursing clinical procedures, mosquito breeding areas. So I think somebody was doing research on those areas, HIV research, and hygiene practices, national nutrition, antibiotic resistance, pattern use of misoprostol in reducing postpartum hemorrhage. So those are the studies that people can do to improve patient care, knowledge how to care for central line, and then infection associated with the ventilators, and then nutritional studies, observational studies, awareness of the staff to their rights, duties, and responsibility at the workplace. So you can do the study like that, asking a coworker if they can provide that information to improve their working environment. And then there were so many people who were involved in maternal, child, newborn, and pediatric area. These questions follow up. I mean, some of the research they've done is like a follow-up for postnatal women, assessment of nutrition status among infants, why children under 1 year studying vaccination data are higher than ending vaccination. So like in the beginning of the vaccination, a lot of people bring the kids to the clinic to get the shots, and then towards the end, people are not doing the shots. So so that was, I think, a very good study. We'd like to know the response. I mean, the results for that. That'd be nice. Helping mothers survive breast bleeding after birth, adolescent use in family planning. So I mean, there's a lot of ideas that people can come up and do those studying with the local area, like your unit area. So you might not need the funds, but at least you have to be able to practice and follow those guidelines. And then some of them causes of fresh stillbirth, and then neonatal death, increasing health communities, causes of maternal sepsis. I mean, so those are only just ideas people can do. Birth defect surveillance program. So, and the use of antibacterial sensitivity of medicinal plants. So you can do a lot of studies that people, I mean, they were gracious enough to share their topics that they've done the research on. So for somebody who is thinking, okay, what do I need to do, or what type of study should I get involved with? You can see the variety there. They're very generic questions. However, you can get into it and find what area you're interested to know for sure, and then put your effort there and try to investigate even more. So for the last question, for everybody, then I'll just give at least a minute to each and then just answer that question. I said, how can we motivate? Those are two people are asking, how can you motivate nurses to participate in clinical research? What are the things that you can say? Okay, pretend I'm the new junior nurse. What things can you say to encourage me to participate in the clinical research right now? Yes, Annie.
Oh, that's such a great question. And one that I have struggled with, because sometimes you will find a sort of resistance to changing how things are done, or we've always done it this way, why change it? And it can be really frustrating and very defeating to that new nurse who's super excited about research, who sees a problem and wants to figure out a different solution, to be met with such resistance. Or even from a management perspective, when you are asking, how can we improve our unit? And all of your nurses say, we're not helping, even though they want to complain about how things are done. So I think finding ways to approach nurses who are maybe resistant to change, are asking them, you know, you are a seasoned nurse and I would really love to get your input, and approaching it that way, as opposed to, oh, I want to create all this change. I want to, you know, do everything to totally, you know, undo the way that you currently practice. Approach it as more of, I really value your input, and go to nurses and say, we really value your input. You know, as we all can agree, nurses are such an important part of healthcare that their voices do matter. So just approaching it from that point of view as, you know, you are a valued member of this team and we need your input. So it's definitely a very tricky situation. It's very a delicate situation at times, but I think that it can be done. So I'm very excited to hear others' opinions and input on this situation, because I've encountered it for sure, as have you, Harriet.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yes, Miss Kathy.
Thank you. The way to encourage a nurses to do research, I think first of all, a nurse has to identify the area of how his interest. After identifying the area of the interest, then she has to know her potentials. I believe everything is possible if you aimed. To myself, when I'm joining my master's, and I found in the class we have a lot of doctors, we are only 2 nurses, then I said, is this course fit for me? But I have passion with it. But because I have my interests, I said everything is very possible. So if there are nurses interested in research, I think we have to encourage, they don't feel to be more inferior, they can mate. But also I think if QHSC can see it, you may prepare a day of inspiration. I call it inspiration days, because during my street of learning, I was inspired by very, very senior. When I've just a diploma, I then started thinking, is the day will come I will reach their level. Through their stories, I get inspired. I may suggest we will make inspiration day, and everybody can say, somebody may get courage to reach their potentials. Yeah, thank you.
Definitely, I would love to do that. And we can talk about when we are done here. But yes, I do agree. I mean, it is hard, like what Miss Annie said, and you just added to it. It is hard as a new person. You go with somewhere, you feel like, why is like, am I the only person here? Or somebody's like, okay, we have done that for 30 years, 40 years. Why do you want to change it now? So, I mean, as a nurse, you're going to feel, I mean, because remember the junior nurse or the brand new nurse or graduating nurse doesn't have the clinical support, clinical practice support of their answers or responses. So they are going to retrieve so quickly as soon as somebody just shut them down. So we have to be able to inspire, and I do love that idea. And as I said, we will get that out and make sure we get that inspiration day, because that's how we build onto our nursing profession. Definitely, I mean, we are going to do that. Yes, Miss Pendo. How do we inspire, I mean, how do we motivate these new nurses to participate in clinical research?
I think what is important, we need to show them that it is possible to do research. Like it's only that maybe for them, they need some training or more training, or they need to read more. So they need to start somewhere, but it is possible. Like from when they were in School of Nursing, if it is possible, from the universities and from the School of Nursing, I think from there we need to build like that attitude. They have to, like, they need to start from there, showing them that research is important in the field of science. Like in nursing is science, so art and science, so we need to do research. So from there, to show them it is possible, and this union, we need to share, like Catherine said, inspiring message is very important, and for them to see that, because like in our areas, some people, they don't, like the way I said, they don't want to read, they don't have that attitude of reading. And also when they read, those who read, they read like in social media stories, what happened today, what maybe this celebrity did. So that one, so you find they're reading, but what they read, it's not relevant. Maybe it's relevant, but not like they will not build, like they will not gain any knowledge there, skills from there, no. So I think what is important, it is to encourage them to develop this attitude of reviewing literature, reading the guideline protocols, yeah, so that they can start engaging in research and learn and identify some research ideas from there.
and share those messages with those expertise so that they can collaborate and work together. And another thing, they need to, I think we need to present the benefit, present to them the benefit of doing research, like the benefits of previous research that we did. If we did some studies and shared our findings to to nurses, that from this research we were able maybe to introduce this intervention, and it was very helpful. So those kind of messages, they will be encouraging them, because without research we will never identify those benefits. We will not get those benefits. Yeah. So inspiring messages is very important. And I think from the School of Nursing, I think something is missing probably in your context, because you find nurses are graduated, but they don't have like interest of doing research. And those who are interested, maybe they're not, they don't know how to start, something like that.
Okay, no, I agree 100% about the nursing schools, because if we really want to include, so to encourage more nurses to engage in clinical research, they need to hear that information from school first, get the theory behind it, and get the processes or what exactly needs to be included in there. Yes, they might do part of their project in their senior year, or preceptorship, or whatever you call it in the program. And then when they come to clinical area, they should be able to know to start with performance improvements first and see how their knowledge or findings, how to improve their practice. And then now engage in more research, to change their practice now. So because by then you have the evidence base that can be shared here, or in their unit, or they can be shared around the world. So I think that one, definitely we have to continue encouraging each other, collaborating with each other, and learn from each other to be able to help each other to build our own nursing profession. And by doing that is to encourage more nurses to do more clinical research and finding. And I do agree with your inspirational event that if we are able to, I will send probably another email out, and people who suggested their findings or suggesting their topic that they've done research on, to try and encourage or give them the platform to be able to say, this is what I did, this is all the process I did until I get the result, and this is how I improve the care. I think if people see it in a visual area to see, okay, somebody started until they finish and change practice, it becomes more associated. I can relate to that, so I can do the same thing like that person has done. So I think having that inspirational day, I think will be beneficial. So we will start working on it to try and get different people from different hospitals. It doesn't matter how small the practice is, or the research was, or the clinical research was. It does not matter, as long as you are able to stick with it, so they can tell us from the beginning to the end and how do they improve their practice. I think that would be motivation in the right direction, to try and inspire people to get them going, so they have a platform to come and share their findings, so we see at the end what they can do. So I think that would be a good idea. Yes. So I think I appreciate your time, Ms. Annie, first of all, for preparing the presentation. And as I said, it's going to be tagged with this conversation, and then so people can use it as a resource, because now they can go back, at least we already say the guidelines, what exactly is clinical research. They can go back and view that video and have that at least the foundation information, and then they can watch the video here to get some questions answers. And as I said, I thank all the people who participated in the study and volunteer their responses, and very good questions. And everybody who can see they're determined, wants to know what exactly is that research and interest in doing it. And I will encourage and continue to encourage people that who are interested in doing research, as Ms. Annie said, let's continue collaborating, try to see how we can help each other. Yes, we may not be able to help you in funds right now or sponsorship right now, but we can start somewhere. Just give a guidance, things that you can do specifically in your own unit, working with Ms. Kathy and Ms. Pendo there to make sure we can help. So if you have any questions about what things that you can do on your own unit, then let's discuss it and start working on those things. Give you a direction on the things that you can do, processes and questions to go and ask your workplace to be able to start this initiative. So you'll be able to help yourself, help your patients, and improve our nursing profession. So Ms. Annie, Ms. Kathy, and Ms. Pendo, thank you very much for the opportunity to share this morning or evening for you guys in Tanzania. And I really appreciate, if anybody has anything to say before we close the meeting, that would be fine. Anything?
I just want to say thank you to you, Harriet, for all your hard work and for putting together this wonderful event today. I learned a lot. And so thank you to Miss Kathy and Miss Pendo for teaching me and teaching the rest of our followers here so much information, and I'm truly honored to be a part of this discussion. So I really just appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Ms. Annie.
Thank you very much for the team, and thank you for you, Dr. Harriet, for this event. To me, this is inspiration. So thank you very much to connected to you. I hope we will move forward. Thank you.
We are going to move forward. Yes. Yes. I'm gonna be texting you every day. Be like, okay, no, that's enough. No. Miss Pendo.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gabone, for organizing this event. It was very good. Yeah, I learned a lot from you, and the discussion I think was really good. Some of the questions, yeah, I learned that there is a lot that we need to do so that we can encourage nurses to participate in research. Yeah, I think we're going to do a lot through this team and encourage other nurses so that we can all develop our profession. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for everybody on your time and sending out the bio. As I said, our goal is to improve practice, and I appreciate everybody for being here and give us this time to share with you, to be able to learn from each other. I mean, I learned quite a bit from Tanzania. I didn't know some of the stuff that you guys do. And Miss Annie here, I continue learning every day. So thank you for working with me all this time. So I'll end it. Yes. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. It was nice to meet you all.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you, everybody.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Gabone, QHSC.